Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-diving deep into one of the most powerful stories ever told, the story of God, creation, and the destiny of humankind. Get ready for a journey that will challenge your mind and awaken your spirit. And today we will come to the story titled Buddhism, the Path of Awakening, the story of the Buddha and the birth of enlightenment. Chapter 1. The Birth Beneath the Lumbini Tree. In the gentle warmth of a spring morning, when the air shimmered with the scent of sal blossoms and the hum of unseen bees, Queen Maya of the Jaikaya clan felt a stirring within her, a deep, luminous pulse, as if the universe itself had chosen that moment to breathe through her. She was traveling to her parents' home, as was custom for childbirth, when she paused beneath a great sal tree in the gardens of Lumbini, a place where birds sang in perpetual harmony and the earth seemed alive with quiet holiness. As her hand reached for a low-hanging branch, pain turned to light. The air grew still, the clouds parted, and from her side emerged a child, calm, radiant, and impossibly aware. Legends say that he did not cry, but stood upright, taking 7 measured steps upon the earth. With each step, a lotus flower bloomed beneath his feet. Then he looked to the north and declared in a voice that seemed both infant and eternal, "I am the foremost in the world. This is my last birth. I will end the cycle of suffering." The sky shimmered. Celestial beings, devas, and Gandharvas are said to have appeared, showering the newborn with petals and melodies, unseen by mortal eyes. The grove of Lumbini became a sacred place from that day forth, a cradle not just of a prince, but of an awakening that would ripple across millennia. When the child was carried back to Kapilavastu, the capital of the Jaikaya kingdom, the court astrologers gathered to divine his future. Among them was Asita, the sage of the mountains, who had long awaited the birth of a being whose light he had seen in meditation. As he looked upon the child's face, tears filled his eyes. King Huddodana, startled, asked, "Why do you weep, Holy One? Is the future of my son dark?" The old sage smiled through his sorrow. "No, O king, your son will be greater than any ruler. He will conquer, not lands, but ignorance. He will become the Buddha, the awakened one. But alas, I shall not live to see his glory upon this earth." Thus the prophecy was spoken. The king bowed his head, torn between pride and fear, for the sage's words meant that his son might renounce the world. From that day, Huddodana vowed that his heir would never know pain, nor glimpse the face of death. He surrounded the boy with pleasures, silken halls, music that never ceased, and gardens that bloomed year-round. Inside those walls, time seemed to stop. Youth never aged, flowers never withered, laughter never ended. The child was named Siddhartha Gautama, he who achieves his aim. And indeed, everything he desired came easily. He was skilled in archery, learned in philosophy, gentle yet wise beyond his years. When he walked through the palace courtyards, even the servants paused, feeling a strange stillness in his presence, as though he carried a fragment of eternity in his eyes. At 16, Siddhartha was wed to Princess Yazatarb, his cousin and equal in grace. Their union was harmonious, the kind that poets later called the marriage of moonlight and lotus. Together, they lived amidst luxury, music, and youth. The king rejoiced. His son, surrounded by beauty, would surely never seek the wilderness. Yet something in Siddhartha's heart remained restless, a quiet question that no amount of joy could answer. Sometimes, at dusk, he would stand at the palace balcony, gazing toward the distant hills where the world turned from gold to shadow. What lies beyond? He would whisper to himself. The courtiers thought it mere curiosity, but to the unseen heavens it was the first tremor of awakening. When his son was born, the child Rihula, meaning bond or fetter, Siddhartha smiled tenderly. Yet in the stillness of the night, the name echoed within him like a riddle, a bond. What bond was it? Love, or the golden chain that tied him to this world of illusion? The next morning, he asked permission to see the city beyond the palace gates, something he had never done since birth. The king hesitated, then agreed, ordering the streets to be cleared of anything unpleasant. Only youth, beauty, and laughter were to greet the prince's eyes. But fate had other plans. As Siddhartha's chariot rolled through the city, he saw what no one had dared to show him. A man, frail and trembling, skin wrinkled like old parchment, walked leaning on a stick. "What is this?" asked the prince. "Old age, my lord," replied his charioteer, Channa, reluctantly. "It comes to all, even to kings." Siddhartha frowned, staring long after the figure had vanished. Even to kings. On another day, he saw a man writhing in pain, his body twisted by disease. "And this sickness, my lord, none can escape it." The prince's heart tightened. So the body, however strong, must fall to decay. A few days later, he witnessed a funeral mourners carrying a lifeless body wrapped in white cloth toward the pyre. Smoke rose into the sky. And this? What has happened to him? "He has died, my lord. All beings must die." For the first time, Siddhartha felt the weight of impermanence. His palace walls had been lies, beautiful, gilded lies. Beneath them, life was a tide of birth and death, joy and sorrow, ceaseless and uncaring. Yet, on the fourth journey, he saw a wandering monk, serene, barefoot, carrying nothing but a begging bowl. His face was calm, untouched by fear or desire. "What is this man's purpose?" asked Siddhartha. "He seeks peace, my lord. He renounces the world to find freedom from suffering." And in that moment, something ignited within the prince's heart. A silent vow formed not of conquest or wealth, but of truth. That night, as the palace slept, he stood by the cradle of his wife and son. Moonlight bathed them in silver. His eyes filled with tears, but his resolve did not waver. He whispered softly, "I must go, not to abandon you, but to save you and all beings from sorrow." Then, quietly, he shed his royal garments, cut his hair with a sword, and stepped beyond the walls of Kapilavastu. The guards did not stop him. The world itself seemed to hold its breath as the prince walked into the night, toward the forests, toward the unknown. And thus, beneath the silent stars, Siddhartha Gautama left behind the life of a prince to begin the journey that would awaken humanity. Chapter 2. The Four Encounters. The forest welcomed him in silence. The song of night crickets replaced the courtly music of Kapilavastu. Where once he had walked upon silk, Siddhartha now stepped on dust and fallen leaves. Yet for the first time, the air around him felt real, not perfumed, not shaped for his comfort, but raw and alive. He no longer wore jewels or fine robes. His hair was shorn, his feet bare. He had become a wanderer, a kramana, one who seeks the truth beyond illusion. The moon above seemed to follow him, pale and eternal, watching as he crossed rivers and forests toward the unknown. But though he had left behind the palace, its memories followed him like shadows: the old man, the sick man, the corpse, and the monk. 4 encounters that had shattered the fragile mirror of his former world. Each image returned in the stillness of his journey, haunting him like questions without answers. He remembered the first, the old man, fragile as autumn leaves. The sight had pierced him like a spear. The realization that beauty fades, that the body crumbles, it was unbearable. He thought of his father, once strong, now aging. He thought of himself, once radiant, now doomed to wrinkle and weaken. How strange, he murmured, sitting by the riverbank, that we build palaces knowing they will crumble, that we chase pleasure knowing it will pass. Why do we live as if we will never die? The stars above gave no answer. Only the river spoke, whispering endlessly as it flowed. All things change, all things pass. The second image came like a fever dream. The sick man, his body twisted, his breath uneven. Siddhartha had grown up surrounded by health, youth, and vigor. To see disease was to glimpse chaos, nature rebelling against itself. Is this to the fate of all? He had asked Channa, the charioteer. Yes, my lord, sickness spares no one. Now, alone, he understood the depth of that truth. The body he once took pride in was not his own. It was a vessel borrowed from the earth, destined to break. The world's beauty was only skin deep beneath it. Every creature trembled with pain. He pressed his palm against his chest and felt the steady beating of his heart. Even this, he whispered, is a drum of impermanence, counting down to silence. The third image was the corpse, the one that silenced all illusions. He could still see the smoke rising from the funeral pyre, smell the burnt air heavy with the scent of death. The people had wept, but their tears did not move the heavens. Life went on, indifferent, cyclical. What is the meaning of life, he asked himself, if its only end is death? If joy, love, and glory must all dissolve into ashes? He sat beneath a tree, staring into the darkness. All he had known, kingdom, wealth, family, seemed like paintings drawn on water. He saw, perhaps for the first time, that existence itself was woven from dukkha, suffering, impermanence, and emptiness. Every birth contained its death, every joy its sorrow. And yet, within that bleakness, a strange determination arose. If suffering is the law, then understanding it must be the key. But then came the fourth image, the wandering monk, calm amidst chaos, radiant amidst decay. The monk had no possessions, no throne, no followers, and yet his eyes had reflected something Siddhartha had never seen in king's peace. Who is he? Siddhartha had asked. He is one who seeks, Channa had answered. He renounces the world to find release from its chains. Those words had burned within him ever since. Now alone, under the vast sky, Siddhartha realized that the monk's serenity had not come from ignorance, but from insight, from seeing the world's pain clearly and choosing to walk through it instead of fleeing it. As the days turned to weeks, Siddhartha journeyed from village to village, seeking teachers, sages, and holy men. He sat with ascetics who starved themselves to escape desire. He studied meditation with hermits who silenced their minds for years, yet no one seemed to hold the final truth. He began to see that the world's answers were like footprints in sand, washed away by time, distorted by ego. Everyone claimed to know the path, but few truly walked it. In the forests of Rajagriha, he met the hermit Alara Kalama, who taught him the art of meditation so deep that the senses dissolved. Siddhartha mastered it swiftly, reaching states of profound stillness. But when he emerged, he felt unchanged. This peace ends when the meditation ends, he said. It cannot be the ultimate freedom. He left, searching again. The second teacher, Uddaka Ramaputta, guided him into subtler realms of formless meditation, beyond perception, beyond thought. Yet when Siddhartha reached the highest state, he saw that even this was impermanent. The mind that perceives nothing still clings to existence. Even in emptiness, he said, there is still the one who seeks to escape. And so, once more, he departed. His path led him deeper into the wilderness, to the banks of the Naranjana River, where the air shimmered with heat and silence. There, he met a group of 5 ascetics, men who believed that by denying the body, one could purify the soul. They were impressed by the prince's presence and invited him to join them. Together, they began an austerity so fierce that even the wind seemed to pity them. Days turned into months, months into years. Siddhartha ate less and less, a grain of rice, a sip of water. His ribs showed through his skin. His body became a skeleton wrapped in dust. When he touched his stomach, he could feel his spine. When he tried to stand, his vision swam with darkness. He had walked from indulgence to starvation, from pleasure to pain, and yet wisdom remained distant, like a star glimpsed through fog. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he saw his reflection in the river, hollow-eyed, emaciated, barely human, and suddenly he laughed, softly, like one waking from a dream. "This is not the way," he whispered. "The truth cannot be found through suffering any more than it can through luxury. The body is not the enemy. The enemy is ignorance." At that moment, a young village girl named Sujata approached, carrying a bowl of sweet rice milk. She offered it to him, mistaking him for a forest spirit. Siddhartha accepted, and as the nourishment spread through his body, he felt life return, warmth, clarity, balance. The 5 ascetics watched in disgust. "He has failed," they said, "abandoning him. He has returned to pleasure." But Siddhartha smiled, for in that bowl of milk he had found not failure, but the middle way, the path between extremes, where neither indulgence nor denial holds dominion. And so, with a heart clear as morning, he rose, bathed in the river, and walked toward the Bodhi Tree that would soon shelter his awakening. Chapter 3. The 6 years of struggle. The sun had barely risen when Siddhartha sat upon the riverbank of Naranjana. The mist hung low over the water, drifting like forgotten dreams. His body was frail, bones visible beneath the skin, but within his chest, his resolve still burned like an ember that refused to die. For 6 long years, he had followed every path men called holy. He had silenced his breath until his heart beat faintly, slowed his thoughts until they dissolved into nothingness. He had mastered the deepest meditations, known the stillness that others mistook for freedom. Yet when the trance faded, sorrow remained. The wheel of birth and death still turned. Hunger returned, pain returned, the ache of ignorance returned. And so he sat now by the edge of the river, weary but unbroken. "What is this truth I seek," he murmured, "that eludes me no matter how far I wander? I have starved the body, silenced the mind, and still I am bound. What chain is this that neither pain nor prayer can break?" The forest answered him only with silence. Wind whispered through the reeds. Somewhere a heron cried. The world, it seemed, moved on, indifferent to his struggle. He closed his eyes, remembering the faces of those he had once known: his father, his wife Yasodhara, his little son Rahula. He did not feel regret, only compassion. He understood now that they too were prisoners, bound by the same ignorance he sought to destroy. "If I do not find the way," he thought, then suffering will go on for them, for all. So he endured. Days bled into nights. His body shrank until it was little more than bone and breath. He ate so little that the wind could have carried him away. His companions, the 5 ascetics, watched with awe at first, believing that this prince-turned wanderer would surpass them all. But as months passed, admiration turned to doubt. "Look at him," one said. "He wastes away and yet claims to seek wisdom." "Perhaps he is lost," murmured another. "If even he cannot find truth, then what hope is there for any man?" Their whispers reached him, but he did not answer. Their judgment was just another sound in the forest, meaningless, transient. One day, after years of self-torture, Siddhartha tried to rise, but collapsed. The world blurred. Blackness swam before his eyes. He reached out, but his strength was gone. The great seeker, the one who had renounced a kingdom, now lay on the ground like a dying beggar. And then, through the haze, came a sound, the soft melody of a village girl singing. Her name was Su. She was bringing offerings to a forest spirit, praying for good fortune. When she saw the emaciated man lying beneath a fig tree, she felt a surge of compassion. Mistaking him for a holy deity fallen into deep meditation, she placed before him a golden bowl filled with sweet rice milk. Siddhartha opened his eyes slowly. The scent of the food reached him, gentle, warm, alive. For a moment, pride battled hunger. His mind whispered, "You are a renunciant. To eat is to fall." But another voice, quieter, truer, spoke within. To destroy the body is not to destroy desire. The truth cannot be found in denial any more than in indulgence. He took the bowl in trembling hands. The milk touched his lips, and warmth spread through his veins like sunrise after endless night. Tears filled his eyes, not of weakness, but of clarity. For the first time in years, he felt alive. At that moment, something within him broke the illusion that pain was holiness. He looked at the forest around him and saw it as it was, neither good nor evil, only real. The ascetics who had followed him watched in silence. When they saw him eat, their faces hardened. "He has failed," said one. "He has abandoned the path. Once a prince, always a prince." They turned their backs and left him, their faith in him shattered. But Siddhartha smiled faintly as they walked away. "They do not yet understand," he thought. "They still cling to the idea of holiness, to the pride of suffering. But truth is not born from extremes." He stood by the river and saw his reflection in the water, thin, fragile, human. For the first time, he did not turn away. "Here is the middle way," he said softly. "Not indulgence, not starvation, balance, harmony, to know suffering without being consumed by it." That night, as the moon rose over the still water, Siddhartha sat beneath a great pipal tree, the tree that would later be called the Bodhi Tree. He crossed his legs and straightened his spine. The stars gleamed like eyes of ancient gods watching. The earth beneath him was cool and alive. He closed his eyes and vowed, "I will not rise from this seat until I have found the truth. Even if my flesh should wither, even if my bones should turn to dust, I will not move until I am free." The wind grew still. The forest seemed to hold its breath. As he sank into meditation, visions began to form, echoes of his past, fragments of the world's sorrow. He saw the countless faces of beings trapped in birth and death, kings and beggars, mothers and children, hunters and prey, all seeking happiness, all bound by craving. He saw himself among them, reborn again and again through endless ages. The realization was unbearable and beautiful at once. He whispered, I have wandered through countless lives, seeking the builder of this house of sorrow. At last I will find him and break his hold forever. Hours passed. The moon climbed high, bathing him in silver. From the shadows, a presence stirred, dark, vast, and formless. It was Mara, the Lord of Illusion, who ruled over desire, fear, and ignorance. Mara whispered to him, invisible, yet everywhere, turn back, Siddhartha. You are only a man. No one escapes me. The world is mine, the kingdom of craving and dream. Who are you to defy it? But Siddhartha's mind was steady as the still water. He neither accepted nor rejected. I am awake, he said quietly, and because I am awake, you have no power here, Mara laughed, a sound like thunder rolling over the horizon. Then face me, ascetic, face all you fear. And so began the night of temptation, the final trial before enlightenment. Chapter 4. The night of enlightenment. The forest slept. The stars drifted like slow-moving lanterns over the quiet earth. Beneath the Bodhi Tree, Siddhartha sat unmoving, his body still and slender as a flame that refused to be extinguished. The air was thick with silence, the kind that comes before the birth of a storm. Even the wind seemed afraid to stir the leaves. All of nature watched, for it sensed what was about to unfold. The battle not of sword and blood, but of spirit and illusion. From the shadows beyond the trees came Mara, the tempter, the lord of desire and fear, ruler of all that bound beings to the endless wheel of suffering. His presence darkened the air. The birds fled, the moon dimmed. Mara's voice rose like thunder across the night. You sit here seeking to escape my realm, but the world belongs to me, the world of hunger, lust, anger, and dream. None escape me. Even the gods bow to my rule. Who are you to defy me? Siddhartha did not open his eyes. His breath flowed steady as the river. I seek not to defy you, he said quietly, for you are but a part of what must be understood. You are desire itself, the shadow of ignorance. I have seen you, Mara, and seeing you, I am free, Mara hissed. Then behold, the might of the world you would renounce. The sky split open with thunder. From the darkness came visions of terror, storms, armies, beasts with fiery eyes. Demons swarmed like locusts, shrieking through the air. Arrows rained upon Siddhartha, but as they neared his body, they turned to petals and fell softly to the ground. Mara's daughters, desire, passion, and fear, emerged from the shadows, each more beautiful than the last. They danced before Siddhartha, their forms shifting like moonlight on water. Look upon us, they whispered. All that the world calls joy, beauty, love, power could be yours. Why deny the life that blooms only once? Siddhartha felt their perfume, the warmth of their skin, the ache of longing that stirred from the depths of his being. For a moment, his heart trembled. He was still human, but he looked deeper, beneath the surface of desire, and saw its truth. A flame that consumes itself, promising bliss, but leaving ashes. He whispered, "You are lovely illusions. I do not reject you. I simply see you as you are." The maidens faded like mist. Mara screamed, furious. Then came the final temptation, not of desire, but of doubt. The air trembled, the earth quaked. Mara appeared before Siddhartha in all his terrible splendor, crowned in flame, holding the weapons of the gods. Around him stood legions of spirits, bowing in reverence. He raised his hand and thundered, "Siddhartha, who bears witness that you deserve to awaken." Who will testify that your heart is pure, that your quest is not born of pride? This seat of enlightenment belongs to me." For the first time, Siddhartha opened his eyes. They were calm, clear as still water beneath moonlight. He looked to the heavens. No gods came. He looked to the demons. None spoke. He looked to himself and smiled. Then, slowly, he reached down and touched the earth with his right hand. The gesture was simple, but it shook the cosmos. "The earth is my witness," he said softly. "Through countless lives, I have sought compassion, wisdom, and truth. I have walked among all beings, suffering and saving. The earth has seen it all." At that touch, the ground trembled. From its depths rose a vast, radiant presence, the earth goddess herself, shimmering with the light of 1,000 dawns. She spoke with a voice like the rustle of rain. "I bear witness, Mara, this one is pure. This one has walked the path through lifetimes. His heart is stainless. He shall awaken." And with that, Mara's power shattered like glass struck by lightning. The demons vanished, the thunder ceased, and silence returned, vast and infinite. Siddhartha sat unmoving as the last shadow dissolved. His body was weary, but his mind blazed with a light beyond all suns. He closed his eyes once more, not in sleep, but in the deepest meditation, the final descent into the truth. He saw all his past lives unfold before him, countless as grains of sand. Birth, death, sorrow, joy, an endless chain stretching through the ages. He saw the law that bound them, every action a seed, every seed a fruit. He understood karma not as punishment, but as cause and consequence, the rhythm of existence itself. Then his vision deepened. He saw how beings rise and fall, trapped in the endless wheel of samsara, birthed to death, death to birth, driven by craving, blinded by ignorance. And then he saw the way out, the middle path, the balance between denial and indulgence, the four noble truths: that life is suffering, that suffering arises from craving, that freedom is possible, and that the path to freedom is the noble eightfold way: right thought, right speech, right action, right understanding. He saw them not as teachings, but as direct truth, shining like light across the universe. As dawn neared, the darkness began to thin. A faint glow touched the horizon. Birds stirred. The first light of morning spilled through the trees, bathing the forest in gold. And then, in the moment, the sun rose. Siddhartha opened his eyes. In that instant, all delusion fell away. The last veil of ignorance was lifted. He looked upon the world, the grass, the river, the sky, and saw not many things, but one: life and death, joy and sorrow, self and other. All were waves upon the same ocean. He had awakened. The world, in that silent instant, seemed to bow. The trees leaned closer. The river shimmered with light. The universe itself exhaled. From that day forward, he was no longer Siddhartha Gautama, the seeker, but the Buddha, the awakened one. He gazed upon the rising sun and whispered, "I have found the path that ends sorrow. I have crossed the flood. I have reached the shore that is beyond all birth and death." The wind stirred, carrying his words into the morning sky. The age of enlightenment had begun, not with thunder, not with conquest, but with stillness. And in that stillness, a new light dawned, one that would shine for millennia. Chapter 5: The Turning of the Wheel. The Buddha's first teachings. The morning sun glowed softly over the Ganges plain. The world felt newly born. The grass sparkled with dew, and the air was still, as if the earth itself was listening. Under the spreading branches of the Bodhi Tree, The man once known as Siddhartha Gautama sat in tranquil silence. His face was calm, radiant, and serene, touched by a light that seemed to come from within. He had awakened, not into a dream of gods, nor into the illusions of desire, but into the truth that lay beneath all things. He sat for 7 days in that state, unmoving, watching the rhythm of life flow around him. The wind stirred, the trees swayed, animals passed by, each breath, each sound, each movement, perfect in its place. In that stillness, he saw the pattern of all existence, the dance of cause and effect, the endless play of creation and dissolution. When the 7th day ended, the Buddha opened his eyes and gazed upon the world with boundless compassion. All beings, he thought, are trapped in sorrow not because they are wicked, but because they do not see. He felt no pride in his awakening, only the gentle ache of compassion, the wish that others too might find freedom from the endless wheel of birth and death. But as he stood beneath the dawn sky, a thought came to him, perhaps the deepest temptation yet. This truth, he reflected, is subtle, profound, beyond the grasp of ordinary minds. People cling to their desires, to illusions of self and power. Who will understand the path I have seen? Why speak when the world is deaf to silence? For a moment, he considered remaining forever quiet, disappearing into the forest, his wisdom unspoken, his peace undisturbed. Then the air shimmered. A radiant presence appeared before him, the god Brahm Sahampati, Lord of 1,000 worlds, kneeling in reverence. His voice was like the hum of wind through the stars. "O Blessed One," said Brahm, "the world will indeed fail to understand much of what you have seen. Yet among the living there are those with but little dust in their eyes. If they hear your words, they will awaken. For their sake, turn the wheel of Dharma. Teach the path and let the light spread." The Buddha looked upon the god and smiled faintly. He saw truth in Brahm's plea. Not all hearts were closed. Some were ready, waiting, yearning. And so he bowed his head in acceptance. "Very well, Brahm," he said softly. "The doors of deathlessness are open to all who will listen." The Buddha began his journey once more across the dusty plains of India. He walked barefoot, dressed only in a simple robe, carrying a bowl for alms. Wherever he passed, people turned to look, not because he was majestic or royal, but because there was something about him that no one could name, a stillness deeper than silence, a joy that did not depend on anything. At last, he came to the deer park of Isaipatana, near the city of Benares. The sun was setting, bathing the fields in crimson and gold. There, beneath the shade of ancient trees, sat 5 men, the ascetics, who had once been his companions in the forest. They had abandoned him when he broke his fast and accepted food, believing he had fallen back into indulgence. When they saw him approach, they whispered among themselves, "Here comes the one who failed, Siddhartha, who abandoned his quest. We shall not rise to greet him." But as he drew near, something strange happened. His presence calmed the air. The dust seemed to settle. The birds ceased their cries, and an unearthly peace filled the grove. Without knowing why, the 5 men rose to their feet. One of them, Kandanga, the eldest, looked into his eyes and whispered, "There is no trace of the man we once knew. Truly, he has changed." The Buddha seated himself before them upon the grass. His gaze was gentle, his voice low and clear. "Brothers," he said, "you called me Siddhartha. That name belongs to a man who once sought in ignorance. The one before you is awakened. Listen, and I shall tell you the path that leads beyond suffering." They listened, and the Buddha began to speak his first words as the teacher of gods and men. "There are two extremes," he said, "which one who seeks truth should avoid: the pursuit of pleasure that enslaves the senses, and the pursuit of self-torture that weakens the body. Neither brings peace. Between them lies the middle way, a path of balance, wisdom, and compassion." He paused, and the wind seemed to hold its breath. "Now hear the four noble truths. First, life, in all its forms, contains suffering, birth, aging, sickness, death, the ache of desire, the sting of loss. Second, the cause of suffering is craving, the thirst that binds us to the cycle of becoming. Third, the end of suffering is possible through the ending of craving. Fourth, there is a path that leads to this end, the noble eightfold path: right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration." As he spoke, the five ascetics felt something stir within them, a clarity long forgotten, a light that seemed to awaken deep inside their hearts. "This, O monks," said the Buddha, "is the path that I have walked, the Dharma that leads beyond birth and death. It is not belief that frees you, but seeing. Walk this path, and you too will awaken." When the Buddha finished, the grove was silent. Then Kandanga bowed, tears streaming down his face. "Truly," he said, "whatever is born will perish. Whatever arises will cease. The Blessed One has shown us the way." At that moment, the Buddha smiled a smile of quiet joy. "Kandanga has understood," he said softly. "Let his faith be known to the world." And so, the wheel of Dharma was turned for the first time. In that small grove, under a fading sky, a new light entered the world. A light that would travel across continents and centuries, through kings and beggars, scholars and saints. The Buddha's first disciples bowed before him, their eyes shining with peace. The age of suffering had met its answer. As night fell over the deer park, the Buddha gazed at the stars. They glittered like countless lives awaiting the touch of wisdom. He whispered into the wind as the moon reflects upon the river. "So shall the Dharma reflect upon the hearts of all beings." The wheel had begun to turn, slow, steady, eternal. And from that moment, nothing in the world would ever be the same again. Chapter 6: The Sangha, the first community of enlightened ones. The days after the first sermon passed like ripples upon still water. The five ascetics, who had once doubted Siddhartha, now sat by his side, their hearts bright with new understanding. They had become the first monks, disciples of the Buddha, keepers of the flame that had just been lit under the crimson sky of Benares. The Buddha called them bhikkhu seekers, who lived not by possession, but by truth. Together, they formed the seed of what would be known as the Sangha, the spiritual community of awakened beings. Each morning, as the dawn mist lifted from the fields, they would walk silently through the nearby villages, carrying their alms bowls. They asked for nothing but food, rice, fruits, and a few drops of milk, not out of need, but as a reminder that life was sustained by the generosity of others. The people, moved by their calm presence, began to call them sons of peace. At night, they gathered beneath the trees, listening to the Buddha's voice. It was a voice unlike any other, soft yet strong, clear as water flowing over stone. "Do not cling to me," he said. "The Dharma is your teacher. A lamp is not the light, it only reveals the flame. Seek within yourselves, there you shall find the truth." He taught them the three refuges. Take refuge in the Buddha, the one who awakens. Take refuge in the Dharma, the path of truth. Take refuge in the Sangha, the community of seekers. These were not commandments, but choices, a vow of trust in awakening itself. One evening, as the sun sank beyond the horizon, the Buddha gathered his disciples around him. "Go now," he said, "and wander for the welfare of the many. Let no two of you take the same path. Spread the Dharma like seeds upon the wind. Speak gently, harm no being. Teach by the way you live." The five bowed deeply. One by one, they departed, barefoot travelers, under the wide Indian sky. As they vanished beyond the trees, the Buddha remained alone once more, gazing into the distance. He smiled. The wheel of Dharma was no longer his alone to turn. Weeks later, the Buddha journeyed to the city of Rajagaha, where the stone walls glowed red in the sun. Word of the Enlightened One had spread like fire across the plains. Crowds gathered to see him. Merchants, farmers, nobles, even wandering priests. Some came out of curiosity. Others sought meaning beyond wealth and ritual. Among them was King Bimbisara, ruler of Magadha. He descended from his chariot and approached the Buddha with reverence. The king bowed deeply. "You are no ordinary monk," he said. "Your presence is like a cool wind on a burning day. Teach me, so that I too may know peace." The Buddha spoke simply, as one might speak to a friend. "O king, a man may conquer armies, but the greatest victory is over himself. Ruling a kingdom brings power, but mastering the mind brings freedom. Walk the middle way, and even a throne will not bind you." The king listened, silent and thoughtful. Then he offered the Buddha a bamboo grove near the city, a place of beauty and stillness for him and his followers to dwell. Thus was founded the Bamboo Grove Monastery, Veluvana, the first sanctuary of the Sangha. Beneath its whispering leaves, the community of monks grew, their lives woven together by simplicity and mindfulness. The Sangha had no temples of gold, no rituals of sacrifice. Their temple was the open sky, their wealth, the wisdom they shared. They walked in single file through villages and forests, teaching not by doctrine, but by example, gentle speech, mindful steps, compassion in every glance. One day, a young man approached the Buddha, troubled and restless. "Master," he said, "I have heard your teachings and wish to join the Sangha, but I am afraid to leave my family, my home, my possessions. Is renunciation not too great a loss?" The Buddha smiled, his eyes kind. "If a man abandons gold to pick up dust, he loses much. But if he drops dust to lift gold, has he lost or gained? What is renounced is not the world itself, but the grasping that binds the heart. A monk who sees this walks free." The young man bowed and joined the Sangha shaven-headed, clothed in simple robes. He became one of the thousands who would, in the years to come, carry the Dharma across mountains and rivers. As seasons passed, more people came, rich and poor, scholars and laborers, kings and beggars. The Buddha accepted all without distinction, just as the rivers, when they enter the ocean, take on one taste, the taste of salt. So do all who walk the path share one essence, the end of suffering. Among the growing Sangha were great disciples, Sriputa, wise as 1,000 scriptures, Moggallana, master of meditation and vision, Nanda, gentle and devoted, who would remember every word the Buddha spoke. Each became a beacon, spreading the Dharma in their own way. Together, they were not merely followers, they were reflections of the Buddha's light. The Sangha became a living embodiment of the middle way. They ate little, yet not in starvation. They owned nothing, yet lacked nothing. Their lives flowed like the river, simple, pure, without resistance. And as they walked from village to village, their presence transformed those who saw them. Mothers brought their children to bow before the monks. Farmers paused in their labor to offer rice. Even thieves, upon hearing their words, sometimes cast aside their weapons and sought forgiveness. For the Buddha's teaching was not of fear, but of awakening, a mirror held up to the heart, showing each person their own potential for peace. One night, as moonlight bathed the bamboo grove, the Buddha sat surrounded by his monks. The air was cool, the scent of jasmine drifting through the trees. "O monks," he said softly, "remember this. The Sangha is not built of walls or words. It lives wherever two or more walk the path with a pure heart. As long as compassion endures, the Dharma shall not die." The monks bowed, their robes rustling like leaves in the wind. The Buddha closed his eyes, listening to the night, to the quiet breathing of those who would carry his truth into the centuries to come. The moon shone upon them, silver and eternal, and the world seemed, for that moment, perfectly still. The Sangha had been born, not as an order, but as a living testament that enlightenment was not the privilege of gods, but the destiny of humankind. Chapter 7: The Miracles of Compassion. Encounters with Kings and Beggars in the years after the founding of the Sangha. Word of the Buddha spread far beyond Maguda, from the snows of the Himalayas to the shores of the southern seas. His name carried on the wind, the awakened one, the Shakyamuni, the teacher of peace. Yet the Buddha himself did not seek fame. He walked barefoot from town to town, his bowl empty, his mind full only of compassion. The world called him miracle worker, but the miracles he performed were not of magic. They were miracles of the heart. One morning, as the Buddha and a group of monks entered the city of Shravasti, a great crowd had gathered. The streets shimmered in the sun, filled with merchants and beggars, nobles and laborers. Among them stood a proud Brahmin priest who doubted the Buddha's wisdom. He raised his voice and mocked, "O monk of the Shakas, you speak of peace, yet you perform no sacrifice. You reject the gods and their rituals. Tell us, by what right do you claim to guide men?" The crowd murmured. The monks stood still. The Buddha's eyes, calm as still water, met the Brahmin's. "O Brahmin," he said softly, "when a man lights a lamp for others, does it not also light his own path? I perform the sacrifice of compassion. No fire, no blood, no altar. My offering is love, and its flame burns in all hearts." The Brahmin trembled, ashamed. He bowed and said, "Truly, your words are the purest fire." And thus, the first miracle, the transformation of pride into humility, occurred without gesture or spell, only through truth. Days later, as the Sangha walked through the poorer quarter of the city, a beggar woman approached. Her hair was tangled, her body thin as reeds. She held out a bowl, her eyes hollow with hunger. But when she saw the Buddha, something in her shifted. She knelt, tears streaking her dusty face. "Lord," she whispered, "I have nothing to give, not even food to offer. My life has been nothing but sorrow." The Buddha knelt beside her, his gaze tender. "Daughter, you have given more than gold. You have given honesty. Offer your sorrow, and let me transform it into peace." He touched her forehead lightly, not with magic, but with presence. The woman's breathing slowed. The tension left her face. For the first time in years, she smiled, not from wealth or promise, but from the realization that she was seen. The monks looked on silently, understanding that compassion itself was the greatest miracle. One afternoon, as they rested beneath a fig tree, a messenger arrived in haste. "Lord," he said, "King Pasenadi of Kosala wishes to see you. His heart is heavy with grief." The Buddha agreed, and soon stood before the great king, once mighty, now bowed beneath sorrow. The royal palace shimmered with gold, yet the air was thick with silence. "My son is dead," the king said, voice breaking. "He was my only heir. I have conquered kingdoms, yet I could not conquer death. Tell me, sage, how can a father bear this pain?" The Buddha closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the king's anguish like his own. Then he spoke, "O king, in the forest, leaves fall from every tree. The green and the withered alike return to the earth. None can command the wind to keep them. So it is with life, we are but travelers, resting under the same tree of time. The wise grieve, yet they do not drown in grief." The king bowed deeply. "Then teach me, Lord, how to walk in peace while the world changes around me." And the Buddha replied, "Let your love not bind, but free. Love deeply, yet know that all who are born must pass. When you see this truth, your heart shall not shatter, it shall awaken." From that day, King Pasenadi became one of the Buddha's greatest patrons, protecting the Sangha and supporting the spread of the Dharma. But not all encounters were with kings and nobles. One day, while walking through a small village, the Buddha came upon a man shouting angrily at his wife. The villagers avoided him, for he was known for his temper. When the Buddha approached, the man scowled. "Who are you to stand before me?" He barked, "You monks speak of peace, but you know nothing of a man's struggle." The Buddha did not answer immediately. He stood silently, watching the man's rage burn like a storm. When the man paused to breathe, the Buddha said quietly, "O man, if someone gives you a gift and you refuse it, who does it belong to?" The man frowned. "To the one who offered it, of course." "Then I refuse your anger," said the Buddha gently. "Let it remain with you, not with me." The man's mouth fell open. The villagers gasped. Slowly, the man sank to his knees, his fury dissolving into tears. That day, he followed the Buddha's path and became a monk, learning to master the fire within. As the seasons turned, compassion spread like sunlight across the land. The Sangha grew not by power, but by kindness. Wherever they walked, conflict softened and hearts opened. Even when the Buddha met those who hated him, he responded with equanimity. Once, a man hurled insults as the Buddha passed. The monks were furious, ready to drive him away. But the Buddha said calmly, "He gives me anger, but I do not accept it." Then who truly suffers, he or I? The monks understood peace was not the absence of harm, but the mastery of one's own heart. In time, the people began to say, "The Buddha performs miracles wherever he walks," but he would only smile and answer. The greatest miracle is not walking on water or in the air, but walking upon the earth in peace. To turn hatred into love, that is true power. To conquer oneself, that is true victory. And so, under his guidance, thousands learned to practice this miracle, not through spells or chants, but through loving kindness, metta, the radiant warmth that dissolves suffering wherever it shines. One night, under the same fig tree where he had first awakened, the Buddha sat alone. The moon hung full and bright. The wind whispered through the leaves. He thought of the kings and beggars, the proud and the humble, all touched by compassion's flame. He knew that his teachings were not meant to create believers, but beings who could see clearly. He whispered to the night, "Let this world be healed, not by power, but by love. Let compassion be the bridge between all hearts. This is the miracle that endures." And in the stillness of that moment, the Buddha smiled, for the world was already beginning to awaken. Chapter 8: The Enlightenment of Angulimala. From murderer to monk, the jungle of Kosala was silent that day, to silent. Birds had fled, travelers whispered in fear, and merchants refused to take the northern road. For in that forest dwelled a name that chilled even the bravest hearts: Angulimala, the man who wore a necklace made of human fingers. He had once been a promising student, intelligent, noble, and favored by his teacher. But jealousy is a poison that seeps quietly. His fellow pupils envied his brilliance, whispering lies into their master's ear. Angulimala, he seeks to surpass the master himself. The teacher, deceived by envy, called Angulimala to his chamber. "Prove your loyalty," he said coldly. "Bring me 1,000 human fingers, and only then will I believe you are faithful." The young man was horrified, but bound by obedience and pride, he obeyed. At first, he killed in confusion, then in anger, then finally in numbness. Each death darkened his heart until his name became a curse. The once gentle student had become the terror of the land. One morning, under a sky the color of steel, the Buddha walked calmly toward that very forest. His disciples followed, trembling. "Master," said Ananda, "that way lies only death. Angulimala kills all who pass. Even the king's soldiers fear him." The Buddha's eyes were serene. "Ananda, there is one he has not killed, the delusion within him. I go to meet not the murderer, but the man still sleeping inside." And so, barefoot and unarmed, the awakened one entered the shadowed forest. Angulimala sat upon a rock, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. Around his neck hung the grisly garland of fingers, a symbol of madness and despair. He saw the Buddha approach, radiant in golden robes, walking with quiet dignity. Angulimala roared, "Stop, monk. Don't come closer, or I'll cut you down." But the Buddha kept walking, his steps as gentle as falling leaves. "Stop." The killer screamed again, brandishing his sword. Yet no matter how fast Angulimala ran, the Buddha seemed to remain just out of reach, moving slowly, yet always ahead. Finally, exhausted and furious, Angulimala shouted, "Monk, why do you not stop?" The Buddha turned and said softly, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." The words struck like thunder in the man's soul. He froze, sword trembling in his hand. "Stopped? What do you mean?" "I have stopped causing harm to living beings," said the Buddha. "But you still rush through the world, harming yourself and others. When will you stop?" In that moment, something inside Angulimala broke, not in despair, but in awakening. He fell to his knees, his weapon clattering to the ground. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "Lord, I have been blind. Teach me how to stop." The Buddha approached him, unafraid, and placed a hand upon his head. "Let the past die, Angulimala. No fire burns forever. Come, follow the path of peace, the path that frees the heart." When the Buddha returned to the city, the people were astonished. Behind him walked Angulimala, no longer a murderer, but a monk. His hair was shaved, his eyes clear, his robe plain. Around his neck, where once hung a garland of fingers, there was now only emptiness, the sign of release. But not everyone rejoiced. When word spread, panic filled the streets. "It's him," cried the merchants. "The killer. He has come to deceive the teacher." Mothers hid their children. Soldiers reached for their swords. The Buddha raised his hand. "Fear not. He is no longer the man you knew. As water cleanses dust, so wisdom cleanses the mind. Let him live in peace, for he has already punished himself enough." Even so, Angulimala's past could not be easily erased. One day, as he went begging for alms, a man recognized him and hurled a stone. Others joined in, shouting curses. Blood flowed from his brow, yet he did not flee or fight back. He simply sat down under a tree, breathing steadily, his bowl cracked in his hands. When the Buddha found him later, he saw the wounds and asked gently, "Does it hurt?" Angulimala, the former killer, bowed. "Yes, Lord, but less than the pain I once caused others. Let this suffering be the last I endure, for it cleanses my heart." The Buddha smiled, well spoken. When one accepts the fruit of his past deeds without anger, the chain of karma begins to break. You, Angulimala, have turned hell into a path of liberation. Years passed. Angulimala became one of the most disciplined monks in the Sangha. He spoke little, worked hard, and treated all beings with tenderness. When others asked about his past, he only said, "I was once a man who ran through the world. Now I have stopped." He spent his final days caring for the sick, visiting prisons, comforting those condemned to die. The very man who had taken countless lives now brought peace to those facing death. One night, as he sat in meditation under the pale light of the moon, a vision arose before him, not of horror, but of peace. He saw every life he had taken, every face once twisted in fear, now smiling. He saw them rise from the shadows, bow to him, and vanish into the light. Tears fell down his cheeks. "They are free," he whispered, "and so am I." When dawn came, the monks found him seated in stillness, his body motionless, his face serene. The garland of fingers was long gone, but a faint scent of sandalwood lingered in the air. The Buddha, upon hearing of his passing, said to the Sangha, "Do not weep for anger. Better than 1,000 empty prayers is one man who conquers hatred within himself. He who once shed blood now sheds compassion. That is the highest miracle." And so the story of Angulimala spread throughout the land, a living testament to the power of transformation. Kings, beggars, thieves, and monks alike whispered his name, not with fear, but with reverence. For if even a murderer could awaken, then perhaps, just perhaps, anyone could. Chapter 9, The Final Journey, the Buddha's Last Teaching. The sun was setting over the plains of Magadha when the Buddha began his final journey. He was now 80 years old, his body thin, his steps slow, but his eyes shone with the same infinite calm as the day he attained enlightenment beneath the Bodhi Tree. Around him walked a small group of disciples, among them his faithful attendant Ananda, who had served him for years with love and devotion. They traveled northward through forests and fields, visiting the villages that had once welcomed the Sangha. Everywhere they went, people gathered, kneeling before the teacher who had changed the world. But the Buddha no longer sought crowds. He walked quietly, as if listening to something only he could hear, the whisper of impermanence, the gentle call of nirvana. One morning, they reached the city of Vesali. The Buddha gazed upon its gates and said softly, "Ananda, this will be my last visit to Vesali. The time of my departure draws near." Ananda's heart sank. He fell to his knees. "Lord, do not leave us. The world still needs your light." The Buddha placed a hand upon his shoulder. "Ananda, Have I not taught you that all things must pass? Even the greatest lamp must one day burn out, yet its light continues in 1,000 others. Be a lamp unto yourselves. Seek not refuge in me, but in the Dharma. That night, a storm swept over the city. Lightning tore across the sky, and the wind howled like the cry of the world itself. Inside a small hut, the Buddha sat in meditation, unmoved by the tempest. The monks watched, and though the thunder shook the ground, his presence brought stillness. When dawn came, the storm had passed, but something in the air had changed. The teacher's time was near. They continued their journey toward Kusinara, passing through the forest of Pava. There, a humble blacksmith named Kunda came to offer food to the Buddha, a dish of rice and mushrooms, prepared with devotion. The Buddha accepted, though his body was frail. He ate calmly, blessing Kunda for his offering. Soon after, however, he grew ill. His breath grew shallow, and his skin pale. Ananda, alarmed, cried out, "Lord, this food has harmed you. Why did you accept it?" The Buddha smiled faintly. "Do not grieve, Ananda. Kunda's gift is as blessed as that of Sujata, who offered me milk grease before my enlightenment. The giving is pure, not the food. Tell him this, so that his heart will be free from guilt." Then, gathering his strength, he said, "Let us go now, Ananda, to the forest of Kusinara, for there the Tathagata shall rest." The journey was long, and the Buddha's steps grew weaker with every mile. At last, they reached a grove of sal trees, their branches heavy with white blossoms. The air was cool and still, as though nature itself held its breath. There, the Buddha laid down between two trees, his head facing north. Ananda arranged a robe for him, weeping silently. "Do not weep, dear Ananda," said the Buddha gently. "All that is born must die, and all that dies will be born again until one awakens. Even the stars fade, yet their light guides travelers long after they are gone." The monks gathered around him, and soon word spread. From every direction came disciples, villagers, kings, and hermits. They knelt, bearing flowers and tears. Even the animals of the forest crept closer, deer, birds, and elephants, as if they, too, wished to say farewell. As the sun dipped low, the Buddha spoke one last time to his followers. His voice was weak, yet each word cut through the silence like the sound of a bell. "O monks, remember this, all compounded things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. Do not cling to anything, not even to the Dharma itself. Let your own wisdom be your refuge." Ananda bowed, his face wet with tears. "Lord, how shall we remember you when you are gone?" The Buddha answered, "Do not build monuments of stone. The true monument is the heart that practices compassion, patience, and mindfulness. Wherever the Dharma is lived, there I shall be." He turned his gaze to the horizon, where the last light of day faded into the calm of night. "Ananda," he whispered, "the time has come. The journey is complete." As the first stars appeared, the sal trees bloomed out of season, their white petals drifting gently over the Buddha's body like snow. The air filled with a fragrance unlike any other. The monks knelt in silence. The Buddha took a final breath, slow, deep, serene, and then no more. There was no thunder, no cry from the heavens, only stillness, vast, peaceful, infinite. The awakened one had entered parinirvana, the final liberation beyond birth and death. For a long time, no one moved. Even the forest seemed to mourn. Then Ananda rose, his face pale but calm. He turned to the Sangha and said, "Do not despair. The teacher is not gone. His body rests, but his truth remains. The Dharma is our path, and compassion our guide. The Buddha has not died, he has simply gone beyond. And so, under the moonlit sal trees, the disciples chanted the verses of peace, their voices rising like a river toward the sky. Impermanent are all things, arising and passing away. When one knows this, one is free. This is the path of awakening. Years later, travelers would visit Kusinara and see the stupa built in memory of that sacred night. They would not see the Buddha's body, but they would feel his presence in the rustle of the leaves, in the whisper of the wind, in the quiet of their own hearts. And across the centuries, his final words continued to echo through time. Be a lamp unto yourselves. Walk your own path. Seek not me, but the truth. For even after his passing, the light of the Buddha did not fade. It merely became the dawn that never ends. Chapter 10: The Legacy of Enlightenment. The Spread of the Dharma, approximately 1080 words. The Buddha had entered parinirvana, yet the silence he left behind was not an end, it was a beginning. Across the forests of India, in the hearts of his disciples, the flame of awakening still burned bright. It was a light no death could extinguish, for it was not bound to one man, but to truth itself. In the days following his passing, the Sangha gathered under the leadership of Mahakasyapa, the wise elder monk. Together, they recited every teaching they could remember, the words spoken beneath trees, beside rivers, in palaces, and in fields. Ananda, whose memory was flawless, repeated each discourse exactly as the Buddha had spoken it. The monks listened, wept, and vowed to preserve it. Thus began the first council, where the Dharma was first set down by heart, a living scripture carried not in ink, but in devotion. For years, the teachings spread from mouth to ear, from master to student. Villages began to build small shrines under trees where the Buddha had once walked. Kings and merchants donated food and shelter to the monks, and the Sangha grew in strength and discipline. But as time passed, the need arose to carry the teachings beyond the Ganges plains, to lands the Buddha had never seen, to hearts that had never heard his name. And so began the great journey of the Dharma. In the 3rd century, before the Common Era, a powerful ruler named Ashoka the Great sat upon the throne of India. At first, he was a conqueror, ruthless and proud. His armies painted the fields of Kalinga red with blood. But victory brought him no peace, only horror. Standing amid the corpses, Ashoka wept. "What have I done?" he whispered. "I have won the world, but lost my soul." In that moment of despair, he found the Dharma. He studied the teachings of the Buddha, and his heart transformed. He renounced violence, ruled with compassion, and became the greatest protector of the faith. Ashoka built 84,000 stupas, sent missionaries across Asia, and carved the Buddha's words onto stone pillars so they could never be forgotten. "All men are my children," he proclaimed. "And as I wish for my children's welfare, so I wish for the welfare of all." Under his reign, the Dharma crossed mountains and oceans, from India to Sri Lanka to Burma and beyond. In Sri Lanka, the teachings took deep root. There, monks began to record the Buddha's words on palm leaves, preserving them in Pali, the sacred tongue of the earliest scriptures. These became known as the Tipitaka, the 3 baskets of wisdom, the Vinaya, rules of discipline, the Sutta teachings, and the Abhidhamma philosophy. Through them, the voice of the Buddha continued to echo clear, timeless, unbroken. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, yet the Dharma flowed like a river, adapting to every land it touched. To the north, it climbed the Himalayan passes into Tibet, where it merged with ancient mysticism to form the Vajrayana, the Diamond Path, a path of fierce compassion and meditation. There, great masters like Padmasambhava taught that enlightenment could be found in every breath, in every act of awareness. To the east, it reached China, where it met the wisdom of Laozi and Confucius. The Chinese found in the Buddha's teachings a mirror of their own search for harmony and balance. Here arose schools like Chan, which later became Zen in Japan, a path that taught awakening not through scripture, but through direct experience. A monk once asked a Zen master, "What is the Buddha?" The master smiled and said, "The mind before thinking." In those few words lived the essence of centuries, the simplicity of seeing things as they truly are. In Southeast Asia, the Theravada tradition endured, faithful to the earliest teachings. In the golden temples of Thailand and Myanmar, monks still chanted the same verses Ananda once recited. Every morning, saffron-robed figures walked barefoot through villages, bowls in hand, just as the Buddha had done. Their silence was a sermon, their humility a living reminder of impermanence. In the vast plains of Central Asia, traders carried statues of the Buddha along the Silk Road, where they met Persians, Greeks, and Romans. In Gandhara, sculptors carved his image in human form for the first time, serene face, gentle smile, eyes half closed in eternal peace. Through art, the Dharma learned a new language, one that spoke not in words, but in beauty. By the first millennium, the teachings had reached Japan, where they became intertwined with Shinto and the poetry of nature. There, the ringing of temple bells at dawn reminded people of the impermanence of all things. Even the cherry blossoms, said the poets, teach us the truth of life, that beauty and impermanence are one. And still, the Dharma spread to Korea, Vietnam, Nepal, Mongolia, and eventually to the farthest corners of the world. Each culture shaped it anew, yet at its heart it remained the same, the practice of mindfulness, compassion, and awakening. In the modern age, long after the fall of ancient kingdoms, the Buddha's message continues to cross oceans and centuries. In cities filled with noise, people still sit in silence. In lands far from India, temples rise. In hearts burdened by suffering, meditation blooms like a lotus from the mud. The words of the Buddha, spoken beneath a tree 2,500 years ago, now echo in dozens of languages. From the Himalayas to New York, from Yangon to Paris, each one a spark from the same flame. And what is that flame? Not a religion, not a doctrine, but an invitation. Come and see for yourself. For the Dharma is not something to believe, but something to live. It is the art of waking up, here and now, to the miracle of existence. In a world that still trembles with greed and fear, the Buddha's legacy endures. Every time someone chooses kindness over cruelty, mindfulness over distraction, peace over anger, the Buddha lives again. As one teacher said, you need not seek the Buddha in temples or scriptures. Look into the quiet place within your own mind. When you find compassion there, you have found him. And so the story comes full circle. From the birth beneath the Lumbini Tree to the spreading of the Dharma across the world, the Buddha's journey is not one of conquest, but of awakening, a map that leads inward, not outward. For the true temple is the human heart, the true scripture is the breath, and the true enlightenment is the moment we see clearly, even for an instant, that we are already free.